Hi, today we will continue our journey and we will configure our VLANs and firewall rules for the project that we started 2 weeks ago. Sadly, I didn't have time to keep up with the upload, but here we are and we will take it from here. So before we get started, first we need to understand, if you're not familiar with what a VLAN is, here's a brief explanation. Let's assume you have a router, such we have our mini firewall. You can pretty much do this if you have a smart switch or a Cisco switch or a Unify, right? It's all down to what you have. So right now we will configure several VLANs that will help the customer, the client that gave us the machine to configure the mini firewall for his needs. So here in this example, we have a VLAN 10, that's a tag, VLAN 20, VLAN 30. And what this means is that you're gonna isolate the network for those machines. So with the help of the firewall rules that we will set, depending on what category the clients, as we call them, or machines or devices, however you want to call them, they will belong to a specific VLAN. They're going to have their own tag and they will be able to communicate within that VLAN with other devices that are in it. With the rules, the firewall rules, we will restrict some of them to communicate either with either VLANs or with the LAN itself, because those VLANs will be linked to the LAN. Okay, so with no other further ado, let's log in. If you remember last time, we created a new user. Since I mentioned that it's a good idea to have a different user as opposed to the admin, and I think it was my evil pony. Let's see. Okay, just a small typo. And since we haven't touched this device since our previous video 2 weeks ago, I actually had my main PC running out of it, and we can see the traffic going in and out. But before we do anything, we have some pending updates, so let's deal with that real fast. Okay, so depending on if you're using OPNsense or PFSense, it's pretty much similar. The difference between them is the options for OPNsense are on the left and the options for PFSense are on top. Okay, so let's have a look at our interfaces. If you remember, we created our WAN, LAN, optional 1, optional 2, right? And now we need to create our VLANs, which after their creation, they will be listed under the interfaces. Okay. Now in OPNsense, in order to find the VLANs or to create the VLANs, we have to go to devices. We have the VLAN, we click on it, and since we don't have anything, it's going to be empty. We're going to have to click the plus to add, and with OPNsense, it's a little bit weirder than PFSense. On PFSense, you can pretty much put anything on the device name as a name, but for some reason in OPNsense, it always require a VLAN 0 and then a dot and a number. You cannot add anything else. Let's say a different name. If I try to put, for instance, let's say we want to create IT, we want this to be on the LAN, not the WAN. The tag should be 20, and then description IT. If I try to create this, it will tell me that the format, the maximum, whatnot. So if I get rid of this part here and click save, it will create the VLAN. Now we have to repeat this for all the VLANs that we want to create. Now, obviously, the reason I added in the description the IT is this VLAN will actually belong to the IT team of his company, and we need to create several other VLANs. So we will click again plus. We're gonna have our VLAN 1, and then we're gonna put dot 30, which will also be the tag. Remember to change this to LAN. So tag 30. This we're gonna leave it as default, and we're gonna add this as IoT. IoT we usually refer as IoT for security cameras, access control, access cards, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna have this for IoT. We're gonna click save. And right off the bat, and this is, I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong. Right, so yeah, whatever. 0.1.30, who cares? It's just a device that obviously is very easy to figure out which is which by the description and the tag. So I didn't actually have time to play around and mess around to see if I can put whatever other names, or maybe there is a script or something, but let's go with it as it is. The second one is the third one is gonna be, well, again, I was messing up. So VLAN 0.2, and then 0.40 LAN. Of course, this is gonna be administration. So while I was doing all this, I noticed that my microphone died. And what I did is I created for each department, I gave it a specific tag. Obviously, the device name here is not that important. We don't care about that. Um, but it is what it is. So we have a description, we have IT, we have IoT, administration, sales, compliance, support, and guests. Those will be the departments, and each department will belong to a VLAN, all of which will belong to the parent of a LAN. So if you configure this um, properly from the beginning, it will be easier for you to troubleshoot down the line if you have issues. Now, not only that, you're going to see later on when we will set the firewall rules that we can block uh, each VLAN and give specific access to either the other VLANs or the LAN itself. Now, for the option 1 and option 2, we're gonna leave it as it is because those will be uh, most likely plugged into a different router, and one will be for a service only, which I'm not sure if I'm gonna record that because that's a something that should be private, but we'll see if we can work something out, or maybe I can do something on the side later on to explain you how that works. So I think, yeah, we're gonna figure that out later. So after the creation, we have our VLANs. You can have more, obviously, you can have less. Um, at the same time, you can, you know, if you don't need the optional 1 and 2 and you want to have LAN 2 and 3, for instance, you can also do for each LAN something similar or something different, or maybe you want on LAN 1 to have only IT, administration, and IoT as VLANs, and then on LAN 2 slash optional 1, you can have your sales, compliance, and support, and maybe on optional 2 slash LAN 3, if that's the name you're going to give it, you can have just the guests, right, and isolated between the LAN. But actually, this is something that you can play around. No option is obviously wrong. It's down to what your preference is, and if you want to tinker with the settings, by all means, you can always deploy on your Proxmox a container to have your OPNsense and mess around there. So enough with my explanation. Let's hit apply. Give it a second. And then that should be it. If we refresh, our VLANs remain, but now they are not listed here. So what do we do? Well, we're gonna go to assignments, and as you can see, we have the first one, but not actually the first one. We're gonna take it in order as we did it. So we will start with the tag 20, which is the IT, description IT. We're gonna hit add, and as you can see, IT popped in our interface. Now we're gonna do the second one, which is the tag 30 IoT, and we click add, and then tag 40 administration, and we click add, and then tag 50 sales, and we click add, compliance, add, support, and lastly but not least, guests. Okay, so we have our interfaces, including our physical ones, and then we have our virtual ones. And here you can see that we have a WAN, and the support, it shows like optional 8, but in actuality it belongs to the LAN. When we're gonna configure it one by one, you're gonna understand what that is. So you're gonna hit save. Okay, so next part is gonna be much easier. Now that we have created the VLANs, we have them assigned as interfaces, we actually need to give them IPs, right? Because right now the LAN is at 10.1.1.2, and we need to separate that, and you will see why the tags actually come in handy. So let's start with the first one, which is IT, with a tag of 20. We're going to click on it. We will hit enable interface. We will click also prevent interface from removal. We will leave everything as it is except the IP configuration type. We're going to put a static IP, and we will scroll down where we need to define the static IP. So we will retain the main one, which is 10.1, but instead of 1, we will give the tag, and the tag of IT in our case, on my case, is 20, and then .1. I'll give this 24. We will leave this as it is, and we will click save. Now after you click save, you need to apply changes as well. Once this is done, we will carry on with the rest. So right now, interface IT, it's up and running. Now the next one was IoT, and we will do the same. Enable, prevent, static IP, and this is going to be 10.1.30.1. We'll have a 24, save, apply, and we carry on. Next one was administration. Well, actually it doesn't matter as long as you know the tags, you know what you are doing. So we'll carry on with the same static 10.1.40.1, 24, save, apply. And we are done. Let me double check. Yes. Okay. Now with this done, the next step that we need to do is to create the firewall rules. But let's have a look at our dashboard. And you can see now that everything is slapped in. Actually, before we do the firewall, there is one important step that I was almost about to miss, and that is setting up the DHCP server for our interfaces. So let's take care of that. Services, DHCP. If we look at our WAN doesn't need, but LAN has already. So we can see that we have this range for DHCP available. We only have 7, 6 actually, no 7, because this is how I wanted to configure the LAN. But if we go to administration, for instance, and there is nothing here, and we need to take care of that for things to work properly. Now, depending on what you want to have on your specific VLAN, you can go with the full range from whatever your IP is, .1 to 254, But what I'm gonna do is only allow 50 addresses to be handed out as DHCP. So we're gonna have our 10.1.40, which is our third octet, and we're gonna have .50. Then let's copy this one real fast, paste it here, and replace the 50 with 100. And this will be easier for maintenance and obviously monitoring down the line, because we know the HCP it's only 50 addresses and it starts from 50, ends up with 100. I think everything else we will leave as it is. Let me double check. Subnet okay, subnet mask okay. And we will click save. And now we have our green button here. This is set. We will leave it as it is and we will move with the next one. So let's make sure we are doing everything here correctly. Again, I missed the important step that will backfire later, and I will explain you what I did. Right, so this hasn't changed. We keep the tag. The third octet should be 60, which is the tag of this VLAN. Again, the IPs I'm handing over are 50 from .50 to .100. The step that I missed was the gateway, which is very important. And of course, if you have a pi hole and you want to route the traffic through that, you can put the DNS server as pi hole. I'm going to leave it empty. It's not necessary, but the gateway is important because each VLAN has its own gateway. And for this one, is going to be the .1. Yeah, so it's 10.1.60.1, the same as the first one I'm going to show you in a bit. Administration has .40.1, which is the gateway, right? So we will carry on with the rest, just a few more, and then we can actually go with configuring the firewall. All right, so firewall rules, and I'm going to show you by default on WAN. We already have the rules. Those are already a preset from OPNsense. It's set in a way to protect your network. Obviously, with the LAN, we pretty much have a bunch of rules as well that will give you access to your local network area. It will give you access to your PFSense address as well, and you can pretty much connect to other machines. So here is what we have to do is we're going to click on add, and the action will be pass. The interface, it's administration, direction in, IPv4, source any. I know it might sound crazy, but this is how the rules for the firewall works for PFSense and also OPNsense. Destination any, right? And description, we're gonna have administration, internet access, and we will click save. And now we have the rule enabled. Okay, so now what this rule does is allowing all the traffic to go access the internet and everywhere else. Now we need to limit that, and we're going to set another rule. Now this rule will be placed on top of the allow, which will pretty much say, hey, before allowing the traffic going there, do this. So the next one will be a block. Here we're going to leave as it is. Source, we're going to leave any, but destination, we're going to change to LAN. And then we're going to click save. Okay, so we need to select it and then click on the arrow. So we're going to say, hey, block any traffic going to the LAN, okay, but allow them access to internet. And obviously you can repeat doing this if you want to isolate everything. Like if you want to give access to specific networks or VLANs, you can do that. But administration in this particular case, in our situation, in my situation, for my client, it's not the administration as admin of the system, right? They specifically mentioned that they want IT to be like full admin, where it can traverse between the VLANs and the LAN. So the administration is not allowed to access the LAN, and it will not be allowed to access anything else. So we're going to create again a block rule, and destination LAN, we have the LAN. I'm going to have to do this for everything. So on optional, they will not have access to the optional one, optional two. So as you can see, this is a block. I'm going to move it on top as well. Okay, so in my case for administration, we have done. We block traffic to LAN. You've seen that we have LAN net and LAN addresses. It's two separate things. So the net refers to the network, and the addresses refer to the specific IP addresses. So if you do it at a network level, you don't have to worry about the individual IP addresses. You can obviously do that, but it will take more time, a little bit more configuration, and yeah. So we blocked access to the LAN, LAN 2, LAN 3, the IT, IoT, and guests, but it will have access to compliance, it will have access to sales and support, because the administration in this case, it will oversee the other departments from compliance, from sales, and from support. Okay, that being said, after we're done, we make sure that the first rule is at the bottom, the one that allows the traffic to go through, but on the top we have the one that is restricting the access. With that being said, we click apply, and that's it with the configuration for administration. Now we have the rules in place, and we're going to move to IT, and here we will create a rule that will be a pass destination everywhere. We will click save. This is the easiest one to configure because IT will have access everywhere on all network levels, right? So they are the admins of the networks, if you will. We're going to hit apply, and we're going to leave it as it is. Now, obviously, the most time consuming is going to be guests, because the guests will only have access to the internet. So the first rule, it's a pass. And then, as we did before, we have to lock down access to all other VLANs and of course the LAN itself. You might be wondering why I blocked the guest access. Well, I don't want any of the guests to be able to access each other. So they are allowed to go and browse the internet, but I do not want them to, you know, allow the possibility of them interacting with each other. So again, we have to put this at the bottom and we are done. So before allowing traffic to the internet, block them from the LAN, IT, IoT, administration, sales, compliance, support, and of course, protect them by themselves. You never know when you have a bad actor trying to compromise one of the devices. So better be safe than sorry. Now that is done with guests, obviously a little bit more configuration than the rest. We're gonna hit apply and we are done. Okay, we are done with guests. Now, obviously I have a little bit more work to do, but the purpose of the video is to show you how to assign your VLANs, how to properly tag them, how to assign the firewall rules, and from there it will be smooth sailing. Now, obviously, um, we need to test if we have access, right? So we know that we have the IT which has full access, but right now, if we check our ipconfig, let's do this /all, we can see that we have the default gateway of this IP address. So what I want to do right now is change that, and that will allow us to test our IT, which was where were we? I need to go to the interfaces to see. I forgot the IP. So 20.1. Let's say we know that we have 1.50. Oh no, that's the gateway. 1 second. So this on top, and the gateway was .1. Click save. You get this, and then everything should be working fine if I'm trying to connect to the internet, and everything else should work. Okay, so that being said, this is pretty much how you configure your VLANs, your firewall rules, and you can explore more options. You can obviously fine tune it as you want, but for our client, we will do the specific things. We're going to continue with the rest. I'm not going to bother you with the rest of the configuration because it's pretty much the same, allowing access and then blocking wherever we don't want it to um, that certain VLAN to get access. Now that being said, if you found the video useful, please share, please leave a like if you like, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. So this is correct. Oh yeah, obviously we cannot access this because we need to do a NAT configuration, but that's something else. It is a little bit weird. We should have internet access. Maybe it doesn't like my DNS assignment, so let's get rid of that. Right, so right now, yeah, we do have internet right now. We can access, actually, we can access it without having to do the NAT translation. Oh, I didn't check the release notes on OPNsense 25 point whatnot, but if I do this again, let's see, DHCP. Throw us back on the .1. That's interesting. Let's have a look real quick here. Let's try that again.